Are B12 injections a right mode of treatment to treat the B12 vitamin B12 deficiency? That's the question I will be answering on today's episode of Ask Nutritionist Deepa. So, if you have been diagnosed with a B12 deficiency, you are not alone. 40% of Americans are deficient in this crucial vitamin called B12. B12 is a very complex nutrient or vitamin to study. However, it is one of the essential vitamins that our body needs. Mm, it's a water soluble vitamin, which means that the body uses what it needs and excretes the excess amount through your urine. So it needs to be replaced on a regular basis. B12 actually has variety of functions in our body, but most importantly, it forms the red blood cells. It keeps our brain functioning really well, and it is also important in the synthesis of a DNA. B12 is also required for or plays an essential role uh, in folate metabolism, which is a extremely crucial nutrient for the reproduction. So to sum everything down, it comes down to without B12, there won't be pretty much life won't exist. So that's how crucial B12 vitamin is. In addition to the benefits mentioned, B12 plays a lot of very important role in fighting depression. One third of the patients who have been diagnosed with depression are deficient in B12. So B12 and mood or how you feel or even anxiety are correlated. It has function with your cardiovascular system, which is your heart and other nerves. So it basically brings down the homocysteine levels, which thus benefiting. Homocysteine levels are associated with heart problems. So it B12 plays important role in bringing those down. Age-related macular degeneration is associated with both high homocysteine levels and low B12 vitamin B12 levels. So when you supplement with B12 and folate, it helps the elderly population where we see most age-related macular degeneration to improve. B12 helps protect the neural birth defects in pregnancy or in unborn children, because it, like I said, it plays an important role in synthesis of DNA, and it basically B12 has an ability to change the function and shape of the spinal cord and brain. So that's why the folate is so, during pregnancy, women have been asked to take extra folate, or even pre-pregnancy, prenatal vitamins are supposed to have really good amount of all the B complex, including folate. But remember, folate is not, is won't exist if there is no B12. So B12 is a first part of the equation. It helps with red blood cell formation, and it makes sure B12 allows us to have enough red blood cells to circulate in our body. That's why B12 deficiency usually is diagnosed with extreme fatigue, because if you don't have B12, then you don't have enough red blood cells, which means you don't have as much oxygen circulating through your system. So lack of oxygen, lack of energy. So it has its role in red blood cell formation. It helps protect, has protective effect on DNA, as I was saying. Yeah, B12 is an antioxidant, and that's how it protects our cells from the damage caused by free radicals, or and thus it reduces the cancer, you know, our risk for different cancers. Now, it is often said that if you are following a plant-based diet, or if you are not eating meat, you are going to be deficient of B12. Well, that's not true, because B12 is not present in animal products as well. It is, animals are not a source of B12. Where we get B12, rather we make B12. Okay, and again, like everything else, it is made in your digestive system. Okay, and it is made by bacteria. uh, it is so there we have it. If you have a good healthy GI, you have higher chance of making your own B12. So a lot of people who are deficient in B12, that is usually because of the underlying GI issues. So before you go on taking B12 supplements and injections and blah, 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 first fix your gut. That's where it all starts and that's where it all ends. So, because just taking supplements is not going to help if your digestive system doesn't have the right environment to make it bioavailable. So you must be able to absorb it properly and transport it properly, and that all happens through your gut microbiome. So uh, B12 absorption is achieved when there is enough intrinsic factor. Intrinsic factor basically is a transporter protein for B12. So we first need to have a transport all ready before we take B12 supplements, or so the intrinsic factor again is determined by your health of your digestive system. So again, please pay attention to your GI by establishing a good, healthy gut microbiome. Again, if you have anemia, if you have IBS, if you have ulcerative colitis, diabetes, if you're on multiple medications, have had cancer-related treatment, take any disease condition, that it's more likely to going to affect your GI system, including anxiety, depression. So make sure you have your GI up and running properly, and you have right kind of gut microbiome, probiotics and prebiotics, of course, to feed those probiotics to make sure that the B12 and every other nutrient has proper environment to get absorbed and to get metabolized and to get transported throughout your system. So anyway, what are the optimal levels? Well, the traditional medicine says that, oh, if you're above 200 or 210, you will be okay. No, I personally feel that the levels of between 4 to 600 are really good. If you're struggling with depression and anxiety, then aiming for the level of 600 or even above 6 to 700 is recommended, because remember, it's a water soluble vitamin, so it's not going to get stored. um, it gets absorbed as much as needed, and then gets excreted through your excess get excreted through your urine. So uh, aim for your blood levels of 400 to 600. Now, what are some of the symptoms of B12 deficiency? Fatigue, weakness, constipation. Believe it or not, many times constipation is related to B12 deficiency, loss of appetite, weight loss, tingling of hands and feet, sore mouth or tongue, mm, difficulty balancing or keeping your gait, confusion, poor memory, and kind of mental fog. If you have small kids who are not growing, we call it failure to thrive. That many times is due to B12 deficiency. Sometimes involuntary muscle movements are because of B12 deficiency, as well as developmental delays. So as you can see, it's a wide range of symptoms. So just be aware of what your body is telling you, or if you see some of these symptoms, then it may be worth it to check your B12 levels. Mm, the most common cause of deficiency is poor absorption. Again, why? If your GI is not functioning, you're going to have poor absorption of nutrients. And again, underlying GI issues, underlying any chronic condition is going to affect the absorption of B12. So what are some of the sources of B12? Of course, we have food sources, and then we have supplements, and then you have B12 injection. So when it comes to foods like algae, seaweed, some type of mushrooms, fermented foods, kimchi, sauerkraut, miso, tofu are some of the sources of B12. But again, remember, it's not that widely available in food, but our body makes it using that intrinsic factor, which is basically supported by your gut microbiome. So so there are really not that many sources of B12, but my most favorite one, and maybe I should show it to you guys. Oops, forgot. Um, is this nutritionalist. It's very easy to find, and it has that unique, pleasant, cheesy umami flavor. And you can use like a tablespoon of nutritional yeast has 130 grams of B12 in it. Again, it's not going to correct your massive deficiencies, but once your numbers are up, it might help to maintain it for some time. So making sure that you are taking nutritional yeast on a regular basis would be another easy solution for to correct, I mean, to get your B12, vitamin B12 in your diet. What about vitamin B12 injections? So before we look into injection, I want to talk to you about the supplement and the kind of ingredient or the kind of B12 you want to look for in your supplement. So if, for example, there are two kinds of B12 forms that are found in supplement. One is methylcobalamin, and second one is cyanocobalamin. Okay, so we have methylcobalamin and then cyanocobalamin. Methylcobalamin is a plant derived, it's food derived, and thus more effective, is more bioavailable than the cyanocobalamin, which is a synthetic form. So your run of the mill, over the counter, just cheap B12 supplements are, chances are going to have cyanocobalamin. This form is not very well absorbed, as well as the excretion is very high through the urine. So look for a supplement which has methylcobalamin. Because it has a better retention. The the B12 vitamin injection is a decent treatment, especially in the beginning when your levels are, if somebody's levels are very low, then it's a quick way to up your levels. But again, it's not a very sustaining type of treatment. So it's better to take your B12 in divided doses, which means don't take everything at one time. If you're taking the supplements, make sure you are taking 1 or 2 tablets every 5 hour, every 4 hour or 5 hours. Okay, so that's pretty much I have to say about B12. Again, it's a very important water soluble vitamin needed for variety of has variety of functions in your system, and the best way to get it is through nutritional yeast and finding a right supplement with a methyl cobalamin form. And if you guys have any other questions, please send it over to me. Otherwise, I wish you happy spring, and I will talk to you soon.